Okay, so we are going to continue with our training. So as usual, we'll log in again. Now we're going to continue with the deployment guide. So as you can see, once we are back into the system, we will go to the deployment guide just like we did before, from systems and infrastructure, and get to customizations, then run deployment. So like I said before, we could either select any of these deployments. Typically this will be configured by the system administrator. So right now we can see two different categories of deployment, while this red button at the top gives us access to the full deployment guide. Typically you wouldn't want to grant that kind of access to everybody, so you want to break it down into smaller components so that each person can have their own areas of responsibility, and then avoid the potential conflict from one person you're trying to override someone else's work. So for the purpose of this training, we're going to use the global deployment guide, which is this red button down here. So we'll click on this and it will take us into the deployment guide screen. From here we can configure everything about the system. So all the various configurations are here. So we have the cross application artifacts, can set up school management and various things. So right now we're going to be looking at the payment setup. So like I mentioned earlier on, the payment setup is all about setting up the various kind of payments that are required within the system. So typically during the create process for a student, at some point you will need to capture the payments that the student needs to make. And not only are you capturing the payments, you also want to capture the right accounts in which those payments should go into, and everything around it. And so what we're going to be trying to cover within this period is to give you an understanding of how the payment structure works. So the first menu here, set up banks, allows us to set up the various banks, and you can do it across countries. So the first menu it brings for us, the first option or the first filter it allows us to fill in the country. We can click on this button here and select the country. From here you can see that there are 249 records, and we have seen the first 100. We are looking for Nigeria, we can't find Nigeria, so we can easily type in Nigeria here, and it's going to try to filter it for us, and we select this. Once we've done that, we can say select. Now by default the system has already set up all the standard banks, but over time this list might change, and depending on your authorization you may have access to create new banks. Typically in most cases you wouldn't have access. This would already be set up for you, and so most of the banks, or all the banks you want for that particular country, would already be available for you. But it's good that you see it there, and these are their standard codes. So these are the standard bank codes that is used to integrate to those banks. So after these banks have been set up, the bank institutions have been set up, we must go ahead and set up the bank accounts. So typically the school would have to set up the bank accounts they have with each of those banks, or with every bank that they need to perform transactions with. So in the same way, we select the country first. After selecting the country, we now select the bank. In this case, let's say you're picking first bank, and we click on this green button at the top here, select. So at this point we have the opportunity to fill in the banking details. So to fill in the banking details, we can click on this new entries here. Once we click on this, it changes the buttons to the list of options we can use. So this allows us to insert a new entry. This allows us to copy. So a copy is more or less like an insert. The only difference is that it pre-populates the content, so we don't have to start afresh and fill in the whole content again. It's just what we're copying from, just like we do copy and paste. Then this is to delete, and then this is, so when you've made all the changes, whether you're deleting or inserting, so always bear in mind that whatever we are doing on this page at any point in time is not complete until we click on this save button. So even if we add a new record here and try to fill it in. So let's say, for example, I'm trying to fill in my account number. My account number is, say, a hypothetical number now. Remember that this should be the real account number of the bank, of the school in that particular bank. But for the purpose of this presentation, you could just put in an arbitrary number too, because the idea is that this is the same account number that will be integrated when the payment integration has been completed. So you can set them up, and then say, so let's say this is FTC Model Academy. FB accounts. Put obviously the currency is Naira, and then set it as active. So right now, this is here, but you can see that there's a little red mark here. This red mark is telling us that this record has not yet been saved completely. It has just been saved temporarily. For you to save it permanently, you need to come and click on the save button. So, but typically we don't do that until we are finished with all the entries we are in. So right now, we need to, let's say we want to add another account, maybe in UBA 100. Like I said, these are all arbitrary numbers, so don't hold me to it. Okay, so that will not work, because remember, so we cannot set up UBA here, because remember we had already previously selected First Bank. So whatever account we are setting up here must be First Bank account, so we wouldn't do this. So we can just delete this particular entry. So I think we'll just leave it for one account for First Bank, and then we click on save. And so once we've saved, you see, so now it is now fully saved. So even if you go back and come back again, we can now see that the account is not there. So let's create one more for, say, UBA. So we can go here and select UBA. I think there's a UBA somewhere. I can always type United Bank. Yeah, UBA. Then we select. So in the same way, just like we did before, let's create a new account for UBA. As usual, this is arbitrary. See, Model Academy UBA account. Same thing, we put in the currency. Set it as active. So we need to set it as active, otherwise it will not be listed. So if for example an account has been used in the past, and then after a while the account is no longer being used, then you might want to come here and deactivate it. So by setting it as active, it will mean that that account is currently in use. When an account is no longer in use, you can set it, you can deactivate it, and then all references to it would be, all the lists where the accounts are supposed to be loaded will no longer be loaded. But you must always take caution, and we will get there when we begin to look at the payment definitions and the setting up of the position rules. If you have tied account numbers to those places, you must then go, and if those account numbers are no longer valid, you must then go back to those pages and replace the account numbers with the current date, the account number of the current date. So right now we've set up 2 bank accounts. Now we want to set up payment method. So typically payment method allows us to create methods of payment. It could either be doing a transfer or a check or a bank draft and all that, and it's a very simple thing. You can just create new entry. So we have new, modified, copy and delete. You can just select a new. Now there are so many things here, but for the purpose, we don't really need to pay attention to all of this. Typically we don't really need to pay attention to this. All we need to do is enter select the country, in this case Nigeria, and then the code, typically not more than 2 digits. So let's call it bank draft. Yeah, so I'll call this bank draft. and then let's say this is for incoming payment, so this is for money coming in. So we are basically saying that the school can receive bank drafts, a typical incoming payment. And then we can put it in a category. So this is maybe a bank transfer or some kind of exchange. So now, like I said, we don't really need to fill in all this, so we can keep the complexity at the minimum and just do a create. So now that we have done this, if you refresh, we now have 2 entries. So basically this is keeping track of it. So we are seeing under Nigeria, this particular system or this of 2 payment methods. So you can either receive payments from checks or bank drafts. So next we are going to look at the payment types. Now, as I mentioned earlier on, payment type is a very simple concept. The idea behind the payment type is that everything that constitutes a cost for the students in the school should ordinarily be defined as a payment type, and that would include, say, school fees, uniform, exercise books, textbooks, writing materials, stationery, whatever it is that the school can potentially charge the students for should be predefined in the system as a payment type, because that becomes the reference number through which all those items are provided. So out of the box, the system comes with a few generic items. You can always add more as your requirements evolve. So right now we can see the very simple, similar to many of the pages we have done in the past. They are all active, telling you basically that they're being used. To create a new entry, we can come here and like we did before, select the new entries. It brings up a very familiar interface, and that's the beauty of the Elite platform. Once you understand the concept in one place, it begins to cut across so many other places, and so thereby significantly reducing the learning curve. So we'll just select the insert to insert a new record. So we've clicked it now. It will typically enter that record at the bottom. So we have to go in there to begin to fill it. So I was trying to create a new payment type. So we can give it a particular code, a 3-digit code. So right now the last one is 074, so we can call it 075, and we'll call it thinking of a good name to give to it now. So let's call it exercise books 30 leaves. Let's say this exercise books leaves. So basically we are creating a payment type for exercise books. And as usual, you can see the red check there again, showing that it has not been saved permanently. So you must always make sure you don't make this mistake. If you close the page at this point, the system has not acknowledged your entries. So you must make sure to click on this save button here for that transaction to be completed, and you can see that it has been completed, and we now have our exercise books in full color. So that is so I'm sure you'll be asking now, so where do you set the price for the exercise book? You've created the exercise book, and we'll get there. The idea for now is for us to identify all the items that are going to be paid for, and that is what this screen is basically doing, and that is the setup payment types. Basically all we need to do is identify what the items are that need to be paid for. So once we are done, we can close this page. Now when we come to the price, we are saying for those items that we have set up previously, how much should we charge? And we know that typically economics fluctuate. The price of goods could either rise or fall, and any intelligent system should be able to accommodate those variations consistently, in a consistent way. And the Elite platform goes way beyond that. In a very intuitive way, it's able to keep track of all the various price variations and allow your system to be up to date, on point, with the right information at the right timeline. And how does it do that? The prices for the payment types are now stored in the what we call the payment definitions, and that's what we're going to know now. So you can see the menu here, maintain payment definition, and we can see a whole lot of items down here and all that, and I'll take a moment to explain how this works. Now when it comes to the pricing, in the previous screen we had created the payment types, and at that point we didn't specify any price. Now we are trying to specify the price. Now the system allows us to quote the price in different currencies. You have the flexibility of selecting a different price for a different currency. Let's look at an example. You can see here that the first line, let me expand this. You can see that this one captures the code for uniform payment, and here we are capturing the amount in naira, Nigerian naira. The second one is tuition fees in naira, but we also have the same tuition fee but in dollars. And the idea is you can now set for the same line item. If, for example, you had schools or the same school but in different countries where they have different currencies, you can from the same platform manage those price differences. Yeah, and the screen is very simple. We had already seen similar menus. So once like I said earlier on, once you understand the menus, it's very easy for you to navigate the system. And so let me just go through them once more. This is create. This is when you want to create a new entry. This is modify, when you're trying to modify an existing entry. And this is copy, when you're trying to create a new entry by copying an old one, like I mentioned earlier. Now this is the limit. That is a new concept, so I'll talk a bit more on it and how it works. Then this is view. This is you're trying to review a particular item in read-only mode. Yeah. And then this is overview. So in all these menus, we're already familiar with all the other ones except these two, the limit and overview. And in the course of this exercise, we're going to do a lot of justice to them so we can get an idea of how those entities work, how they integrate with what we're trying to do. So, but for the purpose of this, we are going to try to create a new payment definition. And remember, we had just created the exercise book for 30 leaves. So let's set a price on that exercise book that we created. And to do that, we come to create. We select create, and now we can see the payment type. We select the payment type. We scroll down to our exercise book. Yep. Now there are some interesting things to note here. Firstly, there's a flag here. We'll see it in the subsequent training when we start capturing the payments at the student level. The system allows us to capture payments in parts for various payment items. So you might say, okay, we want the student to be able to pay the school fees in bits and pieces, or the uniform, or whatever it is. You have to specify it. And so some you might want to allow them to pay in bits and pieces, while for some others you need them to pay the amount in full. And that is what this flag essentially allows you to do. So with this flag, you can effectively control which payment type is allowed to be paid in parts and which ones are not. So that's what this allow partial payment is. Now another new concept is this effective date and end date. And this brings us to the concept of time continuity or time validation. And what the easiest way to explain it without creating a lot of confusion is, take for example the scenario we painted earlier when we said that we know that price of items fluctuate, and regardless of that, you want to keep track of all the historical price changes. So effectively you want to make sure that someone who was owing you money for a particular payment item maybe 3 years ago still have the right records. In other words, the price is still valid as it is and not looking at the new price, because obviously if he had paid you then, you wouldn't be charging him at the new price. You probably, the debt he's owing will be valued at the old price, not the new price. And so in the light of that, that is where the time continuity comes in. So basically the date, the effective date and end date, is used to set a boundary on the validity of that data. That's a mouthful, so I'll take it again. The effective date and the end date is used to set a boundary on the validity of the time data. So essentially what we are saying is, whatever we specify as the price for our 30 leave exercise books will be valid at that price until we decide otherwise. In other words, until we create a new entry with a new date. So for as long as the current date, you can see now that the effective date is pointing to today's date, and then the end date is pointing to near infinity. Well, infinity in this system now, in this case, is 9999. The year 9999. That's the hypothetical infinity, because that is the largest date you can hold with 4 digits. Yeah. So we are saying that as far as the system is concerned, whatever price we specify for the 30 leaves exercise books will be the current price until we decide otherwise, and that is why we have that 9999. So let's say, for example, we are setting the price at, say, 100 naira. We pick our currency. Remember, we can always select that, but I just want to type it in here. Since I know the code, I can type it in and type it out until. So right now we have set the price at 100 naira. Now we can also take it a step further. We might want to, we have set up bank accounts in the previous screen, and now we want to tie those bank accounts so that transactions that are where applicable anyway, transactions that are being processed can be processed directly to that account number. And so we can come here and select an account number. Firstly, we select the country, Nigeria in this case, and then the bank. I can't remember the bank code, so I'll just select it. Yeah, that was. So we have, if you remember, we have 2 accounts. We have First Bank and we have UBA. So let's just pick First Bank, and then once you select First Bank, the accounts would list for us here, our STC Model Academy FB account. You see that that of UBA is not here. If I wanted to select UBA, I'll have to come here and pick UBA. So I can come in here and type in United Bank. By selecting UBA here and I come here, this guy is going to show me for UBA now, like you can see. So we just select UBA, and then we just say update. So once we have done that, so at this point we have captured all we need for the payment definition. So we are effectively said, starting from this date, it does not necessarily have to be today. You can make it in the future, you can move it to the past. So in fact, let's move it to the past. Let's say starting from say the 1st of August. Yeah, so starting from the 1st of August, all 13 leaves exercise books are now 100 naira. What this means is that any entry that is being entered into the system that is on or after the 1st of August will automatically use this new price of 100 naira, regardless of whatever the price was in the past. Even though right now we hadn't set up the price in the past because this is a new entry, but I hope by this time you get the general idea. So with this we can say create, and so now we have created. So once we refresh this, we should see our entry. Now we have 73. I'm thinking, yeah, so we can see it below. Now I can decide to come back here and then do a modifier. If maybe I made a mistake, maybe I picked in the wrong account number, or maybe the price was not correct and all that, you can see that the amount, the currency is no longer available for me to change. So I can no longer change the currency. If I made a total mistake in the currency entirely, then the only option I might have is to delete the whole entry, as it is. Yeah. So, but typically we advise against that, because if some other persons have been using the account to set up students, you don't want to go about deleting those entries and then basically causing a lot of confusion in those other entries. Yeah, so we can see here we can change the accounts, and we can change the actual amount. We can set it as allow partial payment or not. Same thing if you come here in copy. So if, for example, I was trying to copy, we'll come to copy later on, but for now let's look at the display. So display is just like the modifier, but you can see that now the fields are all grayed out and we can't make any change. It's just read only. Even here we can't make any change on it. Now So now that takes me to the remaining 3. So the limit is basically, we talked about the time continuity. Remember the definition we gave about the effective date and end date, that it essentially allows us to set a boundary on the validity of the time data. Now, to control that boundary, typically the system manages that boundary automatically. Basically the system is intelligent enough to analyze based on our data capturing to know what boundaries to set. But there might be sometimes we want to interfere in that process and set the boundaries ourselves, and that is what the delimit is used for. The delimit allows us to break the boundaries by ourselves. Ordinarily, the system would manage those boundaries, or using the delimit button we can decide to take ownership of that process and break them ourselves. And then the overview allows us to see all the boundaries that have been created for that particular item. So for example, remember we were working on the exercise books, 30-leaf exercise book, and assuming the price has changed, say 3 times, maybe in 2005 the price was 15 naira, and then in 2012 the price was 17 naira, and then in 2015 the price was 90 naira, and then now the price is 100 naira. By going through the overview, which is this overview button here, that looks like a search button, we can see across time all the price variations of that exercise book. So we'll be able to see that, okay, in 2005 it was at a particular price, 2010, 2012, and so on and so forth. We'll be able to see them all, know the exact value of that price. And it's very good, it's very helpful, especially when it comes to reconciling data in the past. You're trying to reconcile, okay, how much was this person supposed to pay on a particular date? There is no longer any ambiguity because the system already keeps track of the price on that particular date. So the system can on its own, without any interference, pull out that price and do and retain all the computations it would have managed at that point in time. Yes. So now for us to see how this works, we have to create a copy first. Right now, if I open the overview, you see what we can see here is just one entry because we have only created one price. We are seeing here that the price is currently 100 naira. 100, the naira is at the top. You can see the naira is at the top here. We have seen 100 naira, and it starts from the 1st of August and ends, at infinity, the final date. Now we can now do a copy. Basically, I can select this 100 naira and do a copy. And I want you to watch and see what's going to happen. So now I'm saying, let's say we set the price at 100 naira from the 1st of August, but now we are in today is the 16th of September, and so we are saying, okay, so let us set the new price for 16th of September to be, say, 110 naira. 110 naira. Yeah, so we are not changing the code. All we are changing here is the date and then the amount. We might decide to change the flag, to tell us whether we want it to be partial or not. We might also decide to change the account number where the money goes to. So if, let's say for example we have a problem with UBA, we say, well, going forward we don't want to make any payments to UBA for now, let's put it back in First Bank. So we can come here, yeah, we are free to do that. We can come here and select our First Bank account and then save it, and then you can see that there's a copy here. So basically we have not changed the code, so we're essentially doing all this on the same code. But when we do a copy, now watch what happens. When we return here and we do a refresh, now pay attention, you can see what has happened. Remember the old price of 100 naira and the new price of 110 naira. We can now see them both. But another thing interesting, can you see the date? What has happened to the date? You see that this one that was 100 naira was formerly bearing the 9999. But now, because the price has changed, 100 naira is no longer the current price. The current price now is 110 naira. And that is why it has told us essentially that starting from today, the new price is 110 naira. So by saying starting, and this is where we see what I was talking about before, the system has automatically managed that date for us. Because we started creating a record today as the new amount, the system has automatically stopped the record yesterday. So basically, by creating a record today, we are saying that the old record had ended yesterday, and that's how the overview does. Now, ordinarily, in some cases, we might want to stop that date ourselves. In other words, not that it's in 999 now, we might want to stop it. We don't want it to get to 999. We feel, for example, that data is no longer valid or is no longer relevant, and we want to stop it. We can decide to click on the delimit, and that's what basically delimit allows us to do. So once to click on delimit, it brings us here, and then it gives us the option of changing the date. So I can decide to say that this data is no longer valid. So, okay, let's say by the end of this year, we are no longer going to use this payment type. So we can say that December 31st for this year, and we are delimiting. Basically, we are saying we want this record to stop being relevant after that particular date. And we can do this delimit, and then you see that what happens now is that the date itself is now stopped. So no longer 9999 now, is now stopped on that date. So which means that after that date there is no longer any price for the 30-leaf exercise book. So I hope by now we've gotten the idea of how those menus work, and this concept is very rich, and it cuts across the whole platform. Even when you begin to go into the more advanced concepts of managing the users, instructors, and all that, once you understand this concept, you are good to go. So it's very important that we pay attention to it. So next I want to talk about the discount types. And basically, discount type allows us to set up a discount. You have some schools where you say, okay, after the first 3 students have paid, then maybe the 4th child that comes in will get a 10% discount or a 50% discount on a specific item. So the system allows us to essentially set it up. And so that's what we are doing on this screen. So just like we did in payment types, we can set up the description of the discount types. After doing this discount, the actual discount that will be performed, just like we did in payment type where we had to go to payment definition to set up the actual amount for each payment, same concept applies in discount definition, which I've already explained a whole lot of it. You can see the discount definitions here as well, and it's the same thing. So we set up the 50% discount we want to set up, and same rules apply. So you can see it also has the effective date and end date. So basically the same things I've been explaining in payment types also apply here. So we are saying that discount over time might change. We might say 50% discount applied only to books, and then maybe in future you say, okay, no, it only now applied only to maybe exercise books or tuition or whatever it is. So all those changes, the system allows you to capture them in real time, so that it can always at every point in time hold and identify the accurate data. So I wouldn't spend so much time here. I'll just open it in. You see all these buttons are very similar to what we're already familiar with. So I'll open it in modify. I'll just pick one of them and open in modify. So this 50% discount, I'll open it in modify, and basically, so we're already familiar with this. You can see the discount type at the top and the effective date and the end date. But the interesting part is this list here. So basically what this does is we are saying what specifically are we discounting. Remember, there are so many payment types. We listed a whole lot of payment types: school fees, uniform, exercise books, and all that. But the payment discount does not necessarily apply to everything. You might say that the payment discount applies only to uniforms or to tuition or to whatever it is. So all those items, you can list them there. So if there are more than one, you can create as many as you want. So we can come here and say, okay, we are giving another payment, another discount of 50% to say. So let's say that exercise book, we are giving also a 50% discount. On it. And then we might also want to say, okay, not only are we giving a discount, we are not for certain items we might not want to give a percentage discount, because a percentage discount means a moving value. In other words, whatever the cost of the book is, or the cost of the payment item is, 50% of it will be deducted. So you have a scenario where if the school fees is currently 1,000, then automatically the discount is 500. And then if tomorrow the school fee becomes 2,000, also the discount will also change to 1,000, because it's 50%. but there might be some situations where we want the discount to be a fixed amount regardless of how much the payment or the price is, and that is what the amount field allows us to do. So if for example we select an arbitrary, say let's pick say lesson fees, and we select lesson fees is discounted 300, regardless, and you notice that in this entries we're not putting the currencies, so we're just putting in the figures. We're not capturing the currencies, so the currencies will apply accordingly. It's important that we pay attention to all this, so that there is no confusion when that process begins to happen. So the amount will apply automatically, and so that's where it becomes a bit tricky, because different currencies might have different valuations, and so if you are using dollars, for example, the weight of $300 will be much different from if you're using naira and all that. So you need to be very careful when you're using the amount. And so typically there's a preference for the percentage, because the percentage will always mark up to what the actual value is, so you don't have those ambiguities of exchange rate and all that. Okay, so once we are done, we can now do modify and then save all this. So once you save this, we can now go back to review it. And you can see that all the values have been updated accordingly. And so when you now go to the payment of the school for the students and you're capturing the payment, the system will automatically reflect these discounts wherever it applies and apply it. So with that, I think we've covered most of the payment setup. One more thing I need to talk about is the recharge card types, and essentially the recharge card type is a component that allows the school to generate recharge cards. It's not like a revenue generation component that allows them to capture recharge cards within the system. And the system has a very robust recharge card platform that can be integrated in various ways. So two approaches that are followed is, one is that the system comes with its own local recharge card generator, which is what we can see here. It also gives room to support external recharge card platforms. So if, for example, the school has a particular platform that they use for generating their recharge cards and they would like to integrate, the platform is able to afford them with that integration, but obviously licensing concerns also apply, typically for custom integration that are client specific. Their expectation that you have at least a standalone license. You will probably not have the opportunity to set up that kind of configuration on the cloud, but it's good that we know that that possibility exists. So we can create the recharge card types basically, but I'll just pick one and then we can do a modify. By now we're all familiar with this button, so there's really no need of me going through them again. When I click on the modify, now we can see, so I'll try to explain each of these in as much detail as I can. So firstly, the code. If we were in the create mode, then this code would be active for us to fill it in. Then this is the name. So now let me digress a bit. The recharge card is a very robust functionality. It can be used for so many things. Firstly, it can be used to disable the self-service. So you can decide that the school might decide that, okay, we want people to pay for a recharge card before they can buy a recharge card before they can access the self-service or to check their results. Recharge card will fit perfectly for that. You may also want to have some kind of access restriction, maybe what kind of self-service they can access based on the recharge card they have paid for and all that. So allow this to do that. But even at a bigger level, you can use the recharge card for what I call an e-wallet. We've had a lot of requests of people trying to say, okay, can I use the system to, make payments, to pay, to save money for payments in the future and all that. And we do not have an e-wallet platform integrated directly into the platform, obviously, because of for many legal issues and reasons, especially the fact that this is an open platform that it might not meet all the security requirements required for a financial transaction to be approved. So, and it's best that those kind of transactions are kept outside. However, the recharge card provides the opportunity to allow us handle such requirements, and we will see it as time goes on when we begin to look at the setup and find out how we can actually use the recharge card to achieve all that. And to do that, there are a few things I need to explain. So we have so this is not coming out well, so let me these are all disabled, so I wanted to click on them so you could see them. So let me go and do a create so you can see a new entry. So if I'm trying to do a create, select, I have to choose the recharge card factory I want to use. So if there were other integrations with other platforms, recharge card platforms, they'll all be listed here, and we can select them and select. Now when we come in here, we can put in our code, set it as active, just like we did before. Active is used to logically delete. So if we set it as inactive, it means that we don't want to use that record anymore. We can give it a name. Then the expiration rule. So let me explain this. The expiration rule says basically what is the frequency of expiration of that recharge card, and there are three major ways in which the recharge card may be used. Firstly, you might want to have a recharge card that does not expire. This is typically the case when you are trying to set up a wallet. So if you are trying to set up a wallet basically as a savings platform, then the expiration rule should be non-expiring, so that would allow you to accumulate the funds over time. The next one is expired at the end of term, and so basically we are saying that the recharge card can be valid for the whole term. Once the term is over, the recharge card is no longer valid. And we have another one that says expired at the end of the session. This is very similar to the end of the term. The only difference is that the recharge card is available till the end of the session. Then this flag allows us to accumulate. So we are saying if the recharge card expires and I make a new purchase of the recharge card, should the balance of the expired recharge card be carried over into the new recharge card? So we can use this flag to control that value. Now the next one is the usage type, and basically we are saying how should this recharge card be used, and there are three standard usage types in the system. It could either be counting units. So in counting units, we say that whenever an access is done to the system through that recharge card, a particular number of units should be deducted. A simple example is we have a lot of business cases where people want to generate recharge cards that can be used only 3 times. So basically what you're saying is that when the person logs into the system with that recharge card 3 times, not necessarily login and login, so 3 complete sessions. Yes. So one session, it does not count more than once. So within a session is basically a validity period within the browser. Within that session, it does not count more than once. But if, say for example, you log in, you do a few things, and then you log out, and then maybe after 1 day you log in again, it's going to count it as fresh. It's going to count it as a new entry. So it's important that you understand that. Then the next one is amount allocation, and in this case you are saying you want the recharge card to be deducted as an amount, and that is typically the case where you want to use it as a wallet, whereby it becomes like a funding source. So basically something you can withdraw money from. That's the second one. And then the third one is periodic use, and periodic use is very related to the one I explained before. Periodic use, we are saying basically a typical example is when you set up a recharge card, and like we mentioned earlier on, if you have set the recharge card to end of term, expire at the end of term, we most likely we would want to set up the usage type to periodic use, and that's basically we are saying that recharge card is used for a period. So regardless of how many times you access it, so even if you access it 1,000 times, 100,000 times, no problem, as long as it is still within that period. In the case of if the expiration rule was a term, it means that as long as it is within that term, you can use it as many times as you want, and that is usually the typical business cases. and then here these are plugins, we don't really need to do anything there. Then here is where we specify when the rule is, when the usage type is either counting units or allocation units. We are saying how much should be deducted. So for the guardian access, we are saying when a guardian uses that recharge card to access the student's details, we are saying how much should be deducted from that recharge card. So if it is a counting unit, you might want to deduct 2 units when a guardian accesses it, but 1 unit when a student himself accesses it. So this allows us to capture it. So you can put a difference. Typically you might want to put 1 if you're even counting, or put a fixed amount if you're even allocated amount. But whatever this gives you the flexibility to set a different value for the students and the guardian. And then this basically allows you to specify how large the pin should be. Typically the pin should be at least 12 digits. You can have 12 digits, between the from, I think, from 10 to 32 digits. It's fine. Yeah, that's usually the way. Yeah, so once you are done, we'll just create it. I won't be creating it because we already created one before, and that's what we have here basically. And so once you've done all the setup, by the time you get to the transaction pages where you can control it, or from the self-service menu, it will make a whole lot of sense. So at this point I think we have covered the details of the payment setup, and I hope it has been a very fruitful conversation. Like we always say, practice makes perfect. The idea was to give us a general overview of what the payment type and the setup looks like, and then we can on our own take out the time to do necessary practice to make sure that the knowledge is good. It's good to us. Alright, so with this I'll say thank you for your time and all the best.